Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chad Prather Show. Watch chad.com. That's where all the fun stuff is. Head over there and don't forget to leave us a rating and review when you can. We need it. We want it. We deserve 5 stars, and you can say anything you want to say, and we'll read it sometime. You guys have been, listen, I've been in the live chat watching this show, for a lot of years now, and you guys, many of you have said, we need to have this guy on the show. You need to get him on there. Hurry up and have him on there. Then there were threats. If you don't have him on there, we're going to come find you. So, damn it, he's on the show. All right, TJ Morris. Bear.
What's up, brother?
What's up, brother?
Thank you for having me.
You drove over here from parts unknown. I don't know what nether regions you came from. You might not want to mention because you're a hunted man at this point.
Yeah, well, it sucks to be those people.
I hope they don't find me for their sake.
Yeah, I enjoy a good bit of fun. So come see me. But yeah, I'm from currently I'm in Eastern Oklahoma. Yeah, and we made the drive. Appreciate you having us. Yeah. And we've been kind of going back and forth for I don't know, a year maybe.
More than that. You as a background for those folks who don't know, you guys were a sponsor of this show when I was at the Blaze. Your Refuge Medical, you guys with your medical kits, your first aid kits. We'll talk about that some more later on. I can't tell you how many times those kits have come in handy with me. So one of the all-time great legend bull riders, Tuff Hedeman, is a friend of mine, and we were at a thing together. We get together with a bunch of musicians and cowboys, and we get out there, and he had wrecked his truck. And I think he broke a couple of ribs. I mean, here's a guy who got his face smashed by, Bodacious years ago and broke every bone in his head. And I'm out there digging through that fact, finding Tylenol for him to take. And he came over there and I was like, dude, he goes, man, I haven't taken any painkillers in years. And I said, this is like probably crack for you, taking these Tylenol. He came over there. He's like, man, you got even more of them ibuprofens I could get my hands on. So I've used those kits a lot. You texted me the other day. You've pissed some people off.
Yeah.
How?
Well,
why are people mad at you?
Yeah, so I got a YouTube channel and I do some real extreme things like talk about our God-given constitutionally protected rights. And I read the Bible on camera and I talk about world events and it in a biblical context. How do we apply that to what's happening in our life, seen through the lens of the Bible? How do we apply that to our life today?
Right.
So that we're not operating out of fear. Well, I've been on YouTube 6-7 years, right? Something like that. And the channel has grown and grown. And it seems like the bigger the channel gets, the fewer views I get, right? The more people are automatically unsubscribed from me on YouTube and so forth and so on. Well, I'm the CEO of Refuge Medical. When I speak on camera, I'm speaking in my own voice, not as the CEO. Asymmetric warfare, hit them in the pocketbook. And so the largest e-commerce platform on planet Earth all of a sudden reclassified several types of products that Refuge sells and basically told us if we didn't pull these products, they were going to pull our store. Now, I'm 2 tiers above the most public, the highest tier publicly that this e-com platform has. Pay a lot of money per month to be able to get somebody on the phone and talk to them if we have an issue. Yeah, can't get anybody on the phone. They're sending 1 email per day. Pull your products, we're going to shut you down because we reclassified these products, specifically hemostatic agents, which is gauze that has kaolin clay in it that induces helps speed up clotting, right? It speeds up the clotting factor. So if you have a critical bleed, you shove that stuff in there, and instead of taking 10 minutes with direct pressure to produce a clot, we're in the 4-minute range now, right? Because you bleed out, you die. So they're saying these are prescription items, and therefore, because they're prescription items, they can't be sold on the platform. Cool. Let me introduce you to the Food and Drug Administration, who cleared all these products. Let me introduce you to the medical directors and the doctors of the companies that produce these products. And so I started an email thread with all these other tactical medical companies,
right,
where they're telling this platform, hey, you're wrong. And they came back and they said, that's fine. This is our classification. We stand by our classification. It's been reclassified. Pull these products or you're done for. So I asked, does this apply across your platform or just to Refuge Medical? Well, bro, I got it in writing. Oh, no, it only applies to Refuge Medical. Sounds like discriminatory business practices to me. I've got 3 emails that say this only applies to Refuge Medical, and it only applies to these products, but that does not mean that this is an exhaustive review of the products that you supply, any of which could be reclassified at any time. Why? So that we can't earn money. I got 26 families that pay their bills, raise their kids, eat off of Refuge Medical. There's 125 people still alive because of that company. And hundreds of times a day it has been rendered. And our mission statement is literally to save lives while in service to the Father's kingdom and experience the abundance of His provision and blessing, not theirs. Well, they don't like that. So we've been jumping through hoops with this e-commerce platform for about 10 days now. And it looks like we've finally got it sorted out by pivoting away to that to somewhere else. But to build out our own back end, just because most people don't understand, right? To build out your own back end, your order processing, fulfillment, your shipping, your tracking, your shopping cart, your billing, all of that at a minimum, mid-6 figures to 1.5 in Joe Biden's 2024.
And people have no idea the cost of that. They think, oh, you just put up a website and you orders come in and you're just having an online yard sale.
100%.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. You can start there, but as you scale up and you reach more people, you necessarily have to scale up the back end of the business as well. And so my supposition is because this only applies to Refuge Medical, in writing 3 times, only applies to Refuge Medical, it was an effort to get me to shut the hell up and stop saying the things that I'm saying, which are radical things like...
So it wasn't the product, it was the person.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
They used the clot as a way to come at you, but ultimately it was you.
That's what I believe, which is fine because fear not he who can destroy the body, fear he who can destroy the soul.
Yep.
Right? My God is God. I'm completely unafraid of them. I'm concerned. I have concerns, but I'm not scared. And it's a big fight to pick. All right.
Hey, listen, I mean, we talk about that stuff, and I think the average person out there, they hear a story like that, and they're like, oh, come on, man, you're blowing smoke. You got nothing to worry about. Nobody's going to mess with you. Well, you just had that whistleblower with Boeing, who's, testifying, in court and commit suicide.
Yeah. Randomly.
You hear those stories all the time. I mean, you had the one at the Bill and Hillary Clinton Airport in Arkansas, the CEO of the airport, and suddenly he's gone.
Yeah, he got ITF'd.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's these stories after stories, and I've said, I make a joke about it, but there's a point to the joke, and people say, oh, you guys talk about the Clintons. They didn't, they haven't killed. Listen, I say there's nobody in the world that's got 58 close friends that commit suicide.
100%. Well, didn't the Obama chef or whoever it was ended up dead in the pond in their backyard?
Yeah, and buddy, you hadn't heard any more about that.
No, that got real quiet.
Here's a perfectly healthy 40-year-old man in 12 foot of water, 10 foot of water, and he's out there paddleboarding and...
Do you think that's just the racism of black people can't swim? Do you think that's what it is?
You could go there, except he made videos of how he learned how to swim. Right, the whole deal. My girlfriend, she went on a school field trip with her 12-year-old, and they went to the YMCA. They were all at the pool. And she said, every black kid here is wearing an orange life vest. I said, stereotypes are built in some reality. They are. And so we laugh at that because it's true. But no, I make jokes about that deal, and I always say chefs know everything. If you want to get to the bottom of what was going on Epstein's island, you need to go out there and find whoever was cooking the food, or whoever was working on that island, because you're a classically trained chef. You put yourself through culinary school, tens of thousands of dollars paid for, and a billionaire hires you to go to a private island, going to pay you $500,000 a year, and the only thing you get to make is chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese. After a while, that light bulb comes on, and you're like, oh no, something's going on here.
Yeah,
something's
we're going
going
through
on.
A lot of juice boxes.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out which Velveeta pairs with a Capri Sun flavor. Got to put a toy on a tray every day.
Oh
right?
my gosh! Yeah.
So the chef knows everything. That's why I say Obama's chef. Yeah, he knew some things.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you haven't heard anything more about that Epstein list either. His girlfriend, facilitator, ends up catching charges. He has an accident inside a prison. And I think that's this whole laptop thing that just recently happened with Hunter. Why did they get him on gun charges? As compared to everything else that's on that laptop. You have 51 people in the intelligence community, the IC, wrote a sworn signed document witnessing that this was Russian propaganda. If you talked about it on the internet, you got throttled, or you got your channel pulled, or you got demonetized.
That's
right? All in an effort to silence people. And a lot of people don't understand how the algorithm works. We could touch on that in a minute, specifically on YouTube. But 51 people said, no, it's all made up of the deep state, the intelligence community. But then now it's being submitted as evidence into a federal trial. So clearly it exists. They wrap up Hunter, who probably won't do jail time because it's his first offense, on 3 different firearms charges, because those are the things they can get him on without admitting to 10% for the big guy, without Burisma Holdings, without tracking back to China, without having to bring everything to light that our air quote leadership in Washington, D.C. has been bought and paid for a hot minute. And so, little guys like you and me, you want to go on the road and play your guitar and sing to people. Yeah, not in the age of COVID. You're not allowed to do that.
Right.
But, bro, I don't ask permission from the government. It's the other way around. Even if the balance of power has been tilted, the highest law in the land is the Constitution, as if it's some living, interpretable document. Right? It says what it says. Right? I'm a constitutional literalist just like I'm a biblical literalist. It is what it is. You want to amend it? There's a process for that. You can make it say something else. Go through the process. So they can do whatever the hell they want to do and do whatever the hell they want to do. And they'll have their patsies, their fall guys, who will end up flipping their kayak in the pool in the backyard, or lock up the girlfriend but not the guy, because we've been told by people who are inside the federal government with some of the things that we do specifically, hey, just be aware, if you're going to start this fight, you better have the resources to see it through to the end, because this goes all the way to the top. We got President Shits his pants walking around sniffing little girls' hair and rubbing on them and all this. Yeah, President asterisk. 81 million votes. That's believable. That guy is more popular than Barack Obama was.
Yeah, and voted for by more black people in that election than Barack Obama received in 2 different elections.
Yeah, well, you ain't black if you don't vote for Joe Biden.
That's what he said.
So that's clearly what was happening there. There's this massive grassroots upswell in the urban areas for this 83-year-old pedophile.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I said the quiet part out loud.
For articulate and clean, people like Barack Obama who just wisened up to Joe Biden's wisdom. Hey guys, the question about the next stock market crash isn't a matter of if, but really it's a matter of when. There are just too many signs that we are on the edge of some really tough economic times. We've got war on multiple fronts, movement away from the U.S. dollar on the international stage, a weakened job market, and a recent surge in stock prices that isn't really backed by anything other than investor overconfidence. Now, what's going on right now just isn't sustainable, and when it starts to crumble, it could all come down very, very fast. Now, when the stock market crash comes, wouldn't you rather be a week or a month too early rather than a minute too late? That's why my friends over at United Patriot Coin are offering to help Americans rebalance their portfolios and prepare for the coming market crash by investing in precious metals. They've always been able to help you protect your liquid assets, but now they can help with funds in your IRA or your 401k retirement account also. There's a little-known law that allows Americans to own physical precious metals inside of an official IRA account. This isn't gold, stocks, or shares in some random mining company. We're talking about actual gold and silver coins and bars. Now, the metals you put in your IRA are the exact same ones you're going to get out when you take a distribution. You can even buy and sell within your IRA without the messy tax issues you have with other transactions. So the experts at United Patriot Coin can help you through the entire process, from opening and funding the accounts to selecting the best metals to put into it. I want you to visit UnitedPatriotCoin.com or call their office right here in Texas, 844-202-7834. As a special bonus, tell them Chad Prather sent you, and they will cover your setup fees on qualifying accounts. Remember, go get precious metals in your IRA rollover guide and use it. Check it out. UnitedPatriotCoin.com, 844-202-7834.
Completely unrelated, but do you think, what do you think about the Big Mike stuff?
Well, I'll tell you this. I was talking to I get around people who are adamant about it, right? You know, like Alex Jones is like, oh, no, listen, you got to look at the shoulders. The shoulders are 3 times the width of the head, and that just doesn't exist on a woman. You know, you got to look at the finger. The ring finger's longer than the middle finger. That only happens in men. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I'm like, well, I tell you what, that's a specimen. If that's a female, that's a specimen. You look at the traps on that cat.
100%.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot going on. I wouldn't want to muscle up on that. I'm not arm wrestling with Big Mike.
I'm bringing Dudley if I got to go against Big Mike.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have no definitive proof, but male and female, he created them. I think we know as kids, hey, that's a boy, that's a girl.
Yeah.
That's a boy in a dress.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of that going on. And I think there's some potential to Biden has clearly lost his mind if he ever had one to begin with. Right? And
he's never been smart.
100%.
He's always been the punchline for 50 years in Washington, D.C.
And I think the puppeteers, their hands have got cramps at this point, trying to make him dance along to what they want him to do.
You saw the clip of Obama trying to just pull him along off the stage, and then they're going to come out and tell you, like George Orwell's 1984, the party will make sure that you don't trust your ears or your eyes. And they're saying, no, that's a deep fake or a, whatever that video is not real.
Talk about gaslighting.
Yeah.
The thing you saw with your own eyeballs didn't happen. You're wrong. Oh, okay. Thanks. Appreciate that. That's an abusive relationship. We're in an abusive relationship with our leadership in this country. But I don't think you can run Biden. If I was a Democrat, I don't think you can run Biden. He can't make it another term. He doesn't have the popularity, which means he'll switcheroo. Kamala, her numbers are terrible. She's a vapid idiot, right? And so who does that leave? I think there's a possibility that Big Mike comes right into the rescue, runs as Michelle after they steal the election again. Can't say that on YouTube either. I apologize. Might want to beep that out. After they borrow the election from the American people.
We'll see how much Scheider timestamps things and sends it to our editors.
Sorry, editors. I apologize. This is why they're trying to shut me up. Right?
Trust me. We live just as a footnote. And my audience knows this. When it comes to YouTube, we've lived with a now 4-year strike on our channel because of, quote, medical information. And that medical information is now the right information. Now the mainstream is even telling, when Chris Cuomo's going, oh, yeah, I take ivermectin every day. And then he's going to gaslight people and say, I never made fun of anybody for that. I never made, yes, you did. Here's the clip. And he goes, yeah, but shut up.
Well, I think part of that is they're dependent upon the American people. Why do they push reels and shorts and all that? Because they want to exacerbate the pre-existing goldfish brain that a lot of people have. Sure. That you got an 8-second attention span, right? So people don't even remember what happened last week, last month. And then the same thing with the economy. If you give them an 8-second attention span and you beat the shit out of them with their wages to where they're doing everything they can to just get by, they don't have the time or the ability to pay attention to the higher level strategic things that are actively working against them. They're so caught up in the tactical, trying to pay bills, buy groceries, feed their kids, make sure, sneakers, right? Buy shoes for their kids. I got 4 kids, man, taking care of 4 kids. And the older they get, the more expensive they get, right? And so I think all of that, you could argue, made it happen, let it happen, whatever. It's certainly, let no crisis go to waste. And all of that's done in an effort to have this really underinformed and or disinformed electorate to walk in, pull the lever for Joe Biden or press the button for Joe Biden because 4 more years, right? And so I think there's a chance that they end up sneaking Michelle in as the candidate. She wins. Then after she's inaugurated, then there's the big reveal, our first transgender president. Like, no shit, I had no idea.
In today's economic climate, many of us find ourselves facing the challenge of managing our monthly expenses, and high credit card interest rates can trap you in a cycle of debt with balances that persist month after month. Paying only the minimum each month means it could take you years to become debt-free, if ever. And what I want you to do is reach out to American Financing. They're a trusted partner in helping people achieve financial freedom. So if you're a homeowner, they can tap into your home's equity and help you eliminate high-interest credit card debt. On average, their customers are saving about $854 a month, which is the equivalent to receiving a $10,000 annual raise. You could all use that along with me. Now, the process is straightforward and it's quick. You could close your loan in as little as 10 days, and by acting today, you might not have to pay your next mortgage payment. So it costs nothing to see how much you can save. This opportunity to regain control of your finances is too significant to ignore, so call them 888-675-4090. That's 888-675-4090. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net. NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. The narrative that's being driven out there of them basically saying, okay, we're going to let this Marxist ideology of transgenderism just prevail, and we're going to promote it, and we're going to push it. Like, we're not going to talk about the manifesto of the Nashville shooter who was a tranny. We're actually, the journalist who leaked the manifesto is now having to go to court because he won't reveal his source. So screw free speech and free press. So this whole they've become an untouchable class. God forbid you burn out your tires on a rainbow thing on a crosswalk in the street. You know, and you got places overseas where they're building, you know, putting it permanently in, spending $170,000 of taxpayer money to rainbow the shit out of everything. Okay, so you would definitely say they're setting the climate for something like that.
And I think that goes back to the concept of the regular people. Like, I consider myself a regular person. I work for the money that I have. I'm trying to raise my kids up in a righteous way, hang out with my homies, do meaningful things. The regular people don't have the ability to see beyond the next paycheck. And so they're not tracking on the fact that we're probably somewhere in the middle and or late stage of the setup for a communist revolution in the United States of America, which goes back to all these folks who come across the southern border. Why? And people will say, well, it's because the Democrats need them for their, to redraw the electoral college map. Maybe. Maybe they need them to behave badly. Maybe some of these guys, because we know we've got at least 400,000 military-age males who have come across the southern border, their job is to stand at the top of the hill and just kick the snowball down the hill and then let it roll, because a house divided against itself cannot stand. And then you've also got the pattern of behavior with Zelensky, who suspended elections in Ukraine, only $196 billion was sent over there.
That's it.
Right, to maintain their freedom. Suspends elections, do elections matter? Suspends the elections due to martial law, and is now basically a self-appointed dictator of Ukraine. And nobody has talked about that. Nobody gives a shit. So if they do a test run, a dry run over here in Ukraine and see what the response is, then they can bring that back here and go, hey, we can't have elections in November because there's chaos in the streets. Well, and if you, Hegelian dialectic, thesis, antithesis, smash them together, you get the synthesis. If I control the thesis and the antithesis, right, the problem and the solution, like, I don't know, the world got the flu about 4 years ago, and then there was a whole bunch of experimental medication that had been patented just prior and approved just prior to that to deal with this flu. Thesis, antithesis, you control the synthesis, you can capitalize on that. Yeah. And so I think there's something to these folks who are coming across the porous southern border that a lot of them are electoral college simps, but a lot of them are operational. And there's myriad incidents of pre-operational intelligence that's going on right now, like the stuff that's happening in North Carolina, right? You got special operations guys who've got, Russian proxies showing up on their property and taking pictures and then getting shot in the face, because that's how that's supposed to be handled. You got people shooting holes in transformers at substations, catching fire, shutting off power to the local hospital, the local airport. That's a critical piece of infrastructure. That one substation feeds the hospital and the airport. And so my point is, there's the potential for chaos in between now and November, and chaos works in the favor of the reptilian overlords, the global elite, the morons in the White House, because it's obvious that Biden's not the guy in control, right? So somebody is, and whoever that somebody is, it's in their best interest that they continue to sow chaos, because in the chaos, these short-sighted good people who are just trying to make it up to their next paycheck are going to do what they're told. Just like when they put the mask on, just like when they stuck the thing in their arm, just like, 6 feet to slow the spread. Turns out that shit's made up too. Right. And so, but my overarching concern is that I don't want good people to suffer due to bad leadership.
Well, you saw, and I don't want to interrupt you, but just to that point, you saw how quickly people just immediately turned into sheep and did exactly what they fell in.
Yep.
And did some dumb stuff.
100%.
And then you look back on it and go, what level of clown world is this? We were at the golf course the other day and we were talking about, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you were watching professional sports and they had cardboard cutouts of human beings sitting in the stands or some digital cartoon character in the NBA stands. I was like, what kind of weird Running Man world are we living in with this point? And people thought that's normal.
Yeah, it became normal. And it became normal because they saw it everywhere. It was repeated everywhere. And so the abnormal that should have triggered their normalcy bias go, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Same thing they do with social media. Why does the algorithm work the way that it does? It promotes certain things, it demotes other things. And the things that it promotes are the things that adhere to the narratives that they're trying to push. The things that it demotes are things that go against the narrative that they're trying to push. Because if they can get a critical mass of people up to a qualified level of indoctrination, those people will march in lockstep. That's why you had all those news reporters on the news, thousands of them reading the same exact script every night, word for word, over and over again. Verbatim, right? And so tell me that's not orchestrated. Nobody just comes up with that on their own.
Here's the script, read it.
100%. And enough people go along with it because they don't know anything else. I was born in the 80s, right? So I grew up with like M81 Woodland and Rambo and Rocky, right? Rocky 4 when he beats the shit out of the Russian guy, like that, right?
Yep.
They successfully indoctrinated me into America kicks ass and the Soviets are bad. It worked. We're doing the same thing now with our children, but on the complete other end of the spectrum, telling them you live in the greatest, freest country on planet Earth, and they don't even know what their rights are in the Constitution. So they accept all of this as normal. And so what one generation tolerates, the next generation will embrace. Just like you've seen the Overton window shift, it started with, hey, bake this wedding cake. Allow these two dudes to get married so they can be mutually insured as a couple, right? And we can argue whether or not that was good for the greater good of humanity. Whatever. Take that, set it over here. That Overton window has been shifting to the point where we now have drag queens who are shaking their junk in the face of kindergartners, and we're permanently installing pride flags in the middle of the road as if pride doesn't come before the fall. Now, in order to know that pride comes before the fall, that would require you to read the Bible. And your shirt, Real Men Matter. There are so many, personal thing for me, there are so many pussy beta male pastors out there that are telling men the best way to follow Christ is to just be a sopping wet P-word, nice guy, don't speak up, don't rock the boat, No, we're supposed to.
Be nice, be a wimp.
Bro, so Peter had a sword, lopped the guy's ear off with it.
Yeah.
The Levites had swords. Messiah says in Luke 22:36, he who doesn't have a sword, sell his cloak and buy one.
How many times have I already said this today, Shatter, on other news shows? The kingdom of God suffers violence, and the violent take it by force.
100%.
Right? I mean, the call in my heart right now is calling men not just to be men, but to be violent men. And to understand what that means.
Yep.
Whether capable of violence, we've lost all sense. What you said earlier is so profound. When we want to go to that again, because then we'll come back to this. They've conditioned us, whether it's a 60-second or a 90-second reel on social media. Your attention span is about 15 seconds. That's why they give you, if you look at the algorithm, the Google overlords will show you how many 3-second views you have, how many 60-second views you have. And it's like, oh, we're measuring ourselves by our ability to process something for 3 freaking seconds?
And it drops right off.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it goes off. People can't do it. That's why if you're watching television, anything that's on a screen, if it's produced, they're going to make sure that scene changes every 10 seconds.
Didn't Spotify just update their rules as well as far as their...
I haven't heard. I don't know. Did they?
I've heard rumors of it. I haven't personally looked into it, but I'm interested to see if it's true how Rogan responds to it.
Yeah.
Because medical information, the hate speech, misogyny, all of that, the definition is wide enough of all those things you can drive a truck through it, and that's intentional because when there's no definition to what the rules are, you can apply them individually to silence individual voices, right? As you could say, hey, you violated the rules. Well, the rules are, amorphous. They're completely unclear. How am I supposed to adhere to them? No, you violated the rules. You can pull that content down. We'll slap you on the wrist. Never do that again, or we're going to shut you down.
Right.
Like you said, you got 2 channel strikes currently.
I lost count. There may be more, Bear. I don't know.
I have 2 permanent channel strikes on YouTube. Strikes on YouTube.
I can tell you this. I'm at a point now where I don't even worry about you know, you get accused. People say, "Oh, you're just a grifter online." I don't think I earn any money from any social media platform.
Same.
I don't think I'm allowed to on any of them. So these people who say you guys are just pushing all this kind of stuff, trying to sell. No, you're after clicks and views. Y'all don't understand. I'm so demonetized. I mean, I'm on there just because that is a platform. We're actually, you know, because we could sit here and we could point these things out. We can shed light on it, and I want us to do that because we need to do it. But then you got to look at what are the resources to change it. Here's another problem. We're in the process of building a new network. Like, we're building a network where if you want to watch this show, you want to watch other like-minded shows, you can get on there. As people are familiar with things like Patreon and things like that. You want to watch content? Okay, here's the deal. You got to take one extra step. We're going to give you this platform. You can go out here and use it. We're going to own it. We're going to have it. We're going to give you the content. But you know what people are going to do? They're going to go, well, I'm used to going to YouTube. I don't want to take that one extra step to push a green button over a red button because I've been conditioned to do that.
100%.
We're literally going to give you the resources to get away from these overlords. And it ain't an effort. It's not an effort to get rich. It's just an effort to say, listen, there's some stuff you guys need to hear, and if you don't take the effort to discipline yourself to hear it and go to the places where you can hear it, you're going to get to a point very soon where you don't hear it at all.
Well, that's indicative of a lack of personal responsibility.
Right.
Run into the same thing. People are all the time, they're like, Bear, you should be on Rumble. I am on Rumble. I've been on Rumble for years.
From the beginning.
And the fact that you're telling me I should be on there shows you how well that platform's working. Okay? And I mean, no disrespect.
Preach it to the choir, baby.
I mean, no disrespect to the people who founded and operate Rumble, but bro,
God bless them.
It ain't working.
No.
Right? Because people have been conditioned, right? It's stimulus response.
Yeah.
And Pavlov's dog over and over and over again. We hate to admit that we're all creatures of habit. It's in some of the work that we do at Kaleb House, the fact that we're creatures of habit actually works in our favor to be able to do what we do because everybody has a pattern of life, right? Yeah. And we're completely unaware of it. Like, you tie your shoes the same way, you brush your teeth the same way, you wake up about the same time. When you're home, you go the same places at the same times. Pattern of life. We're all creatures of habit, including the indoctrination of pulling open the phone and hitting the red button instead of the green button. It's just, you know, we have a Patreon channel too. And people are like, well, you're trying to capitalize off, bro, it's a value exchange. Okay. Right. There's 7,600 people there who have seen the value in it. And the idea is to produce content that one video of the 12 to 15 per month that come out on Patreon, that one video is worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
But they don't see it. They're going back to the communist idea. You should give me your absolute best for free. Really? Okay, do not muzzle the ox as it treads out the grain.
Right.
Right? I shouldn't do anything. And laissez-faire capitalism, I shouldn't do anything unless there's an incentive for me to do it.
Right.
If we're all going to rely on the common good, your definition of good or my definition of good? Because if I think there's 87 genders and half my head's shaved and the other half is purple, we're probably going to have an ideological disagreement about what good is.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why you need an ultimate arbiter of truth. And in governance, the answer to that is the Constitution.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be as freaking weird as you want to be, as long as you being weird doesn't actually impede upon my existence. And I'm allowed to be as boring as I want to be, as long as me being boring doesn't actually impede upon your existence. And we can, First Amendment, say mean shit to each other from across the fence. Until we start throwing rocks at each other, we don't have a problem here. Yeah. And we've turned this, violence is now words thing. There's so many of these people out there, right? The violent men take it by force. There's so many of these people out there, they don't even know what violence is. Right. And you're going to be screaming about your pronouns while somebody is knocking your teeth out, right? And my concern is that the likelihood of that happening is increasing, and good people have become so soft that they're not going to be able to tolerate it. And because they can't tolerate it, they'll capitulate it, and they will get in lockstep, just like they did with COVID for whatever the next thing is. Just like the bird flu. Oh, the bird flu is next. Dude, 3 people have caught it. You get a fever and aches for 48 hours. 3 people have caught it. Jenny O got paid $88 million by the FDA to slaughter millions of their turkeys due to bird flu. And same thing with Growers Pride and Tyson and all these other growers, right? To create the illusion that all these birds either have or are being slaughtered because of bird flu, not because they were incentivized by the FDA on the back end to receive payouts to prematurely slaughter all of these birds to create the illusion that there is a bird flu. and people are just eating it up. How do you go through COVID? How do you get to this point in life as a man with a pair of testicles and hair on your chest and go, I can't wait for the next time Big Daddy government gets to tell me what to do again?
Right.
It's ridiculous, right? And it's that lack of personal responsibility to the point that people can't even hit a different button on the 7th generation Intel collection device they're carrying in their pocket, right? It's like, I want you to spoon feed me, Chad, as if you owe them anything.
Listen,
right?
You're exactly right. And it's and the examples abound. I mean, of what you're saying, the examples abound. And people don't want to hear that. I repeat myself a lot. People say, I've heard you say this 100 times. Listen, I can take this book right here.
There you go.
I can take this book right here. Now this book, believe it or not, when I bought this book 25 years ago, this Bible, I've got several Bibles. My main Bible's fallen apart, so I keep this one up here with me. I've got some significant things in here. But you know what? I believe that every word of this book is truth. And here's the thing. They didn't give it to me. I had to go into a store and buy it. I had to make an investment in everything, the pages, the binding, the print, the whole deal. Now, I've taken care of it because I value it, and it's reinvested back in me. So I made that initial investment. I made that initial effort. I disciplined myself to now use it, and the investment comes back in me, right? That's kind of what, you know, you go to Matthew 5 through 7, the Sermon on the Mount. Everybody knows, they've heard of the Sermon on the Mount. That's interesting because Jesus, we see pictures of him standing up on a rock preaching to these thousands of people. That's not what the Sermon on the Mount was. It says, when he was seated, he began to speak to his disciples. Others overheard it, but the message was to his disciples. And there's been people out there who said, he probably repeated himself 100, 200 times on these things because there was no way that Matthew and Luke and John could write what they wrote from memory and be so accurate with one another, right? So they had to hear it over and over again. So I'm like, listen, guys, you got to invest in the truth. You got to invest in the standard. You got to invest in the truth speakers. And you got to go out there because, again, if you don't, there's going to come a time where it's going to get harder and harder to find these guys. Look what they're doing to Alex Jones.
Yep.
Love him, I hate him. I like Alex. I think Alex has a big heart. I think he's got a soft heart. People say, well, I don't agree with everything Alex says. Who cares? I don't agree with everything I say. I mean, sometimes I say things and I'm like, dude, I just need to slap myself in the mouth. But the fact that he has an opinion or he says these things, and now you're going to give this guy an exorbitant $1.5 billion fine? I mean, that you're doing the same example that they're doing with Trump with the lawfare. You're coming out after this guy on this thing, and they want Carthaginian peace. I mean, they want to plow the fields under, pour salt on it so nothing ever grows there again. The federal government wants to take InfoWars. He's having to sell it to pay down the fine for the law deal. And it's like, at what point in time do we stand up and say, listen, they're going to take anybody out there who's bold enough to punch through the smoke, and they're going to bury them.
Yep.
And you know what else it's going to be like? It's going to be like 1917 Russia, where the Bolsheviks took over, and the first thing they did was they took the children out of the home and put them in special schools. And as you said, a generation later, guess what? Now they're KGB agents.
Yep.
Now they're interrogators. Now they're assassins. Now they're executioners. They're there to do the will of the government. Mm-hmm. So here we are. I mean, it's almost like history told us the pattern.
100%. And he who doesn't know history is doomed to repeat it.
Right.
And I get it. It's I feel very much so sometimes as one crying in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Right. And that's even that. Why don't they want people to congregate and get together? Because when we're addressed as individuals and we operate individual lives, it's much easier to gaslight us. It's much easier to tell you, you're the problem. Everybody else is this way. But you come together, you forsake not the gathering together, book of Hebrews, and you start comparing notes. It's like, hey, man, how much do your groceries cost right now? Holy shit, that's an abomination, right? How much was it to put fuel in your truck today? Right. And you start talking about, oh, your hours have been cut, your hours have been cut. What are you seeing in your neighborhood? And all of a sudden, we can start to get a little bit more of a global picture of what's happening. People share intelligence without even know, and I don't mean like mental intelligence, I mean like an intelligence product without even know that they're doing it. It's part of why they want to keep people separated, part of why they want to put people in boxes. You over here versus you over here, the left versus the right, for example. There's some crazies on the far right. There's some crazy people on the far left. That 80% in the middle, if that 80% in the middle figured out that their efforts should be focused on cleaning up house in Washington, D.C., rather than fighting over each other with what pronouns we're going to use today, just like stupid stuff, things that are inconsequential and don't matter. My grandchildren will never be born and prosper in this country based upon pronouns, right? We need, I would submit, a God-fearing country that's submitted to his authority, that recognizes the value and importance of individual liberties as outlined in that founding document. And then we need the country populated with people who have personal responsibility. I don't want the government to do anything for me except maybe national defense, right? Like if the Russians are feeling froggy, awesome, go drop some warheads. I don't care. And people take that out of context, whatever. Other than that, right, like go fight and win, I would add, fight and win the nation's wars.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Other than that, bro, leave me alone. I live in eastern Oklahoma. We literally pave our own roads. We needed a bridge, so we built a bridge, right? Because the property taxes are like $4, right? There's nothing there. Population density is low, so we handle it. And whatever that might look like, if it's in your suburban community or in an inner city community or out in the sticks, you're so far in the woods they got to pipe the sunshine in, handle your shit so that somebody else doesn't have to. You handle your problems. You take care of it. Don't push it on to the next guy. So now your existence becomes subsidized with my taxpayer dollars, right? I'm technically in the top 1% of earners in the world. It sure as shit don't feel like it, right? Because of taxation. Anyway, I can jump into that. But if people would just wake up and realize like 95, 99% of the problems that you have look at you in the mirror every morning.
Yeah.
And if you could get that right and you could get the relationship with the Father right, the two greatest commands, love the Lord your God with everything you got, with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, everything, and love your neighbor as yourself. On this hangs all the Torah and the prophets. And what's our definition of love? It's that book. That book tells us. And the reason we got to do that book is because if we don't, if we have unequal weights and measures, your definition of love is different than my definition of love. Your definition of righteousness is different than my definition of righteousness. A, there's no personal responsibility. B, it guarantees disagreement. C, that's unequal weights and measures, which are an abomination to the Father, as noted in the book. So we all got to be singing from the same sheet of music. And I realize there's people out there of different faiths. And I realize that the Christian church has absolutely messed things up, is currently right this moment absolutely messing things up. But if we could appeal to a higher authority as sons and daughters of the Most High and walk the way we're supposed to, rather than the higher authority being the government, which is supposed to be in service to the people, not the other way around, I think things would be much different for this country. And I fear that it's going to take something like a communist revolution or a World War III or a Civil War II, some major catalyst, just like it did for the children of Israel with the Assyrian captivity and then the Babylonian captivity, some major catalyst to make people wake up and go, oh shit, and fall on their face and beg for forgiveness. Because, we do disaster relief, right? When somebody's house is completely destroyed, there's nothing left but a slab. You would ask, why would the Father do that? Why would he allow that to happen to good people? Well, first, whose definition of good? My definition or his definition? Right. Second, every single distraction they have in life is gone. They may own a concrete slab at this point. They may not. Everything is gone. There's nothing left to do but turn back to him now. You can't watch Netflix. You can't hop in a truck and go for a drive. You can't drink beer. You got no bed to sleep in. There's literally nothing left but you and him. And I think it's going to take something like that, unfortunately, call it judgment on a national scale, to get people to wake up and pay attention to the author of creation in the first place, who we wouldn't be here without anyway. And we've made an idol out of governance. I'm going to vote for this person. I'm going to vote for that person. These are my pronouns. This is what I stand for. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm a little L libertarian. We've made idols out of these things. Not that they're not important, but they're not the most important. And we've forgotten what is the most important as a people. Yeah,
and you've got that's a lot to unpack there.
Sorry, bro.
No, I'm glad you said it, because there's a ton of thoughts that are there, and there are a couple of takeaways that I want to remind people of. When you have that type of value system built in place, that type of standard, that sense of justice, the roads get built. The messages get delivered. The old get and the infirm and those they get taken care of. Yep. There is no need for a welfare system. There is, as Paul says to the Thessalonians, he says, he who shall not work will not eat, yep. Right? Because again, if you got the system in place, there's going to be a discipline and there's going to be an ethic that's there that takes care of things. That's why I love when these people who want to push socialism say, oh, you guys, y'all love all the things that the social programs in America give you. Social programs isn't socialism, but I promise you, if you take away those people out there building the roads, there's people out there like you and me that'll get those roads built. There are those private companies that are already building those roads. They're just getting paid with government funds. I guarantee you we'll figure out a way to get those roads built.
100%.
And throughout human history, God has allowed the crisis and the chaos and the war and the pestilence and the plagues and all the stuff to come to decide, okay, whose heart's going to melt and whose heart's going to get hard.
Yep.
It's throughout history. And that's why, as the writer of Hebrews, when he says, when that discipline comes, that's how you know God loves you. Because you're going to yield the peaceable fruit of righteousness for those who have been trained by it. There's a righteousness, a rightness. That's a right way of living that's going to be yielded from that type of discipline. That's why James says in chapter 1, he says, listen, count it all joy when you enter into various types of trials. He's literally saying, hey, throw a trouble party. Because you guys, this is going to yield for you something that you're not going to get in your default setting, right? So we look at the chaos out there. Go back to what I said earlier. The kingdom of God suffers violence. The way of God's doing things is suffering violence. And that means there is a strategic attack against God's order.
Yep.
The darkness has never overtaken the light, but it sure as hell is trying.
100%.
It never stops trying. So to what degree are we going to keep putting the light under the basket?
We're not allowed to.
Right.
We're commanded to. No one lights a lamp and puts it underneath the basket.
And I'll say this, and because I'm saying all this to give you a breath because I know you got more to say, but when Jesus talked about who we are as change agents in the world, he described us like salt, light, bread, keys. Every one of those things has to penetrate to be effective. A key has to penetrate the lock, salt has to penetrate the food, bread has to penetrate the body, light has to penetrate the dark. All of these are agents of penetration. What you've been doing through Kaleb House, and you guys have had these massive storms rebuilding and stuff like that. I texted you a couple of weeks ago and I said, what are you up to? And you're like, I'm rebuilding a town. And you were, right?
Yeah.
I would say that's some pretty solid penetration. That's kingdom effectiveness right there.
Thank you.
I think that's God's way of doing things.
If more people would do what the Father told them to do, we wouldn't have most of the problems that we have. And I'm not a prophet. I have less than a year as an ordained pastor. I barely know that shit. I'm still working on it. It's like, what do you do? I don't know. Pray with people, read the Bible.
You know what? Listen, I'm seminary trained, and I got to the point where I said, forget all that stuff and stay dumb.
Yeah.
I'm more effective without a shingle outside the office.
Yep.
That's why people get mad at me, and they're like, well, you get kind of abrasive sometimes. I was like, I'm in a different arena than you're in.
100%.
So
yeah, people jump on me.
Whole different deal.
They're like, yeah, it says you're not supposed to curse in the Bible. It's like, that doesn't mean cuss words.
That's exactly right.
It's two completely different
people
things.
People do not grasp that concept.
Yochanan the Immerser, John the Baptist, told the Pharisees that they were filthy menstrual rags. Yeah. That is a biblical usage of douchebag.
Yeah, when they came to Peter and they tried to buy the power of God, he said, to hell with you and your money.
Yep. I believe it's in Amos that talks about the Father smearing dung in their mouths. Yeah. That's literal bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that upsets some people. They're like, you're supposed to be a Christian, man. You're not allowed to say that. And I'm like, well, okay, let's make eunuchs out of all the Christian men. And when your town gets wiped off the face of the map by a tornado or a hurricane, and you cry out, please, Father, send somebody to help, and nobody shows up, you did that.
Yeah.
Right? When our children are abducted and taken and serially raped and tortured, and nobody shows up to help, you did that. And maybe your answer is, well, the government should do something about it. Oh, good idea. Let's give those guys even more power and authority, even more purview. They can't keep up with the purviews that they have. If they could keep up with the purviews that they have, if FEMA was good at its job, Grindstone Ministries wouldn't exist, right? These government agencies that have oversight on human trafficking, boy, some of them are trying. And they're really trying. But not even case law precedent in a lot of these places. And the bar that you have to reach in order to build a case that is prosecutable is so much higher than so many people think. You can't just text a tip line and go, hey, I saw this guy, he looks like a weirdo, you should go investigate him. Praise the Most High. We're not there. It's not communist America yet. It doesn't work that way. But my point is, if more, and I don't know about women. I've never been a woman. I'm never going to be a woman. It's not biologically I don't have a front hole.
I've tried to figure them out a time or two.
Yeah.
It remains a mystery.
I have an awesome wife. And I intend to always have an awesome wife, because other than that, I'm 0 for like 1,000, bro. So 1 out of 1,000. But, I don't know about what should a woman do? I don't know. I'm 6 foot tall, 265 pounds, covered in hair. I run chainsaws for fun that are bigger than this table.
Right.
I don't know what a woman should do, but I know what a man should do. He should do what the Father has called and equipped him to do, to go out there, to penetrate, to go be the light. And the being is not a static thing, right? We're not just planted here. We don't have roots. We're not stuck here. Right. Messiah, go out unto all nations, right? Abraham wandered in the wilderness. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness. The children of Israel were constantly coming and going. The prophets, go and speak. Go. Literally, one of the Torah portions is called bo. It means go, go, right? And we've gotten so freaking comfortable, man. I'll go to the church that I feel like going to, as long as they got the appropriate time slot for me on Sunday, and the worship band is good, and the children's program is good.
Coffee's right, air conditioning's right,
just
the
right.
Fountains in the lobby.
And if I can't find a seat within the first 4 rows, I ain't interested. It's like, got it. You're negotiating with the creator of the universe about how you're going to serve him now. Probably a losing argument. And I could say that because I'm covered in satanic tattoos from a decade playing drums in death metal bands.
Yeah.
And he still found a way to A, pursue me, B, redeem me, C, use me for his will. And so if he can take this busted up pile of shit and do something good with it, and I mean like really good, not because of me, but because of him, what's everybody else's excuse?
Yeah.
It's inconvenient. You don't have time for it. It's uncomfortable. Bro, they killed our king. They killed our king. Snitches went to the government and got our king killed, and the servant is not greater than the master. What expectation do I have? I'm going to live the most righteous life that I possibly can in my broken, fallen state of flesh right now, covered by the blood of the Lamb, and I'm going to go do whatever good stuff I can, knowing he's already paid it all, but I got a score to settle because I've led tens of thousands of people astray before this, and my goal, I know it doesn't matter to him, but it matters to me, is when I shuffle off this mortal coil to at least break even. Like I at least want to break even. Yeah. And that's a freaking life's work, man. And if you don't have a life's work that's ordained from the creator of the universe, what are you doing anyway? What are you doing with your life? If you're not reaching into people's hearts, if you're not communicating with them, the gospel and the light, and being love to people, meeting people in their time of need, forsaking not the widow and the orphan, right? Feeding and clothing those that need it. All of this modeled in the Gospels. Are you even a follower of Christ if you're not walking in the footsteps of Christ? 1 Peter 2:21, for this you were called, that Messiah, having suffered for your sins, that you would walk in his steps. So faith is something that we do. Be not just hearers of the word, but doers also. You shall know them by their fruits. Behold, I come swiftly to reward each man according to his works. Not that you're going to work your way into the presence of the Most High because of the works that you've done, but we do the works because of the obedience that we have to the man who gave his life for us in the first place.
Yeah. And then we want to look at that murdered king and say, well, I had a bad day because it was Monday and I sat in traffic and the power bill came in. Because we don't wake up with a sense of mission.
Yep.
Hey, can I say something for those of you who are watching or listening? I'm sitting here with Bear, and I can smell a man. Literally, when you're in the presence of men, you know you're in the presence of men, okay? At the risk of sounding like I'm celebrating Pride Month here, I'm just saying, you know when you're in the presence of men. You smell like a man. You look like a man. You talk like a man. You know, you're not operating in fear. It's not. This is what we're missing in society right now. is a guy that when you get around that guy, you're like, you know what? This guy has something to say, but he works his ass off. And at the end of the day, I think he's earned the right to say it. And then you got the Google gods out there, the little panty waist cuckolds that walk one step behind a woman who's parading around in a vagina hat, and he's got a limp wrist, and she's got him in a full vagina suit himself, who didn't get bullied at all in high school because he was part of some kind of protected class in a private school, and he should have had his ass whipped in the playground. And we're going to be told by these guys who have their hands in each other's pockets what you and I are allowed to say in a public forum. You know what? You can take your public forum and shove it up your ass.
Amen.
Because at the end of the day, you can't stop that message. You couldn't stop the message of John the Baptist. You couldn't stop the message of the prophets. You couldn't stop the message of Christ. Couldn't stop the message of Paul. You could crucify people upside down, boil them in oil, put them on an aisle busting rocks in exile. You still couldn't stop their voice. And they don't learn that lesson. You said earlier, you talk about the voice of one crying in the wilderness. It always fascinated me when they described John the Baptist that way. They said he is the voice of one. He wasn't the echo. He wasn't saying what he'd heard others say. He was a voice. It was a unique voice, and that's what I treasure about you, because you, in spite of all of the crap that's thrown your way, you're a voice. You're not echoing things. I can hear you say, I mean, the anointing in the room right now, just knowing that the presence of God is on this conversation. And I pray, I've been praying as we've been talking that this translates through technology, which the devil lives in. You know how things get lost in translation, and Satan has a way of twisting it through that process, the prince of the power of the air, right? Yeah, I always say all the time, devils live in this technology. And I just pray that people hear this message, because what resonates inside of me from what you're saying in so many different ways, and there's so many things to unpack, is real men do matter.
Yep.
And it was funny, I wasn't even thinking about this shirt when I put it on. I just go down and I got a pile of t-shirts, I sell them. And I tossed one on, and this happened to be the one. Every shirt I own is gray, so I didn't know what it said until you pointed out a little while ago. So it's fitting as a God thing. But I'm sitting there going, you know what? This is the message, man. What you're saying, and God, they hate you, dude. They hate you. They hate me. They hate these. And I could list off different people of the world who just telling it like it is. They hate us. They want us. They don't want us silent. They want us dead, dude. And they want any remnant of our voice. They want our legacy gone. You know, when God says that a righteous man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, that's not just about money. That's a legacy. That's a name. That's a voice. That's a message. That's a truth. That's what you imparted into their soul. They want that eradicated. They want that generationally eradicated. They want to kill every generation we got. If they could erase that message, and you know how I know that is because it's what's been done throughout human history.
Yep.
Man's inhumanity to man is just one big, long chain of examples of that eradication process. But somehow God keeps a remnant, and there's a voice that just can't be crucified. And when you do, it just gets louder and louder. Look at Donald Trump. They put Donald Trump, and I'm not saying Donald Trump's any kind of messiah. Don't get me wrong. Don't put words in my mouth. Trump is a Cyrus. He's a barbarian king who's a beast at the door.
That's a good
and
analogy.
They don't like him because he's not controllable in regards to that. Maybe not the brightest bulb all the time. Maybe not the smartest guy in some arenas, and not the most eloquent all the time. But sometimes people like that get raised up for such a time as this, and they want to silence him. But what happens? They go out there and they give him 34 convictions, and what does he do within 7 to 10 days? Raises $500 million.
Yep.
Most of which is small donations from first-time donors.
Yep.
You can't shut that voice up.
Well, and so to your phrase, for such a time as this, I think there's a lot of men within the sound of our voice right now that maybe don't know what to do.
That's a good point.
Because there's so much chaos in the world, and they're trying to find a rock to hold on to, something stable. In Revelation chapter 4, the end of chapter 4, it talks about there's the 24 elders, and they're in the throne room of the Most High, and there's these 4 creatures, and the 4 creatures represent the tribe of Dan, the tribe of Ephraim, etc. And they're worshiping. They're casting their crowns at the throne, which is deferring to the authority of the Creator, right? And the last verse in Revelation chapter 4 talks about how the Father has made all, and it is good, and he has made us for his purpose. And what that means to me is the creator of the universe, go to Genesis chapter 1, made everything. He made the earth, and he looked upon it, and it was good. So to everybody who says cow fart's going to destroy the planet, bro, it was good, right? He didn't make jets, you know. He didn't make, you know, strip mining, but he made cows, and it was good, and it tastes good too. But he looked upon this creation that he had made, and he thought to himself, I know how to make it better. I'm going to put a Chad in there. Yeah. I need a Chad in there. And he knew us as we were being knitted together before we were being knitted together in our mother's wombs. It's not chaos theory. It's not serendipity. It's not happenstance. It's not just coincidence. It's intentional. All of this is intentional. I don't always understand why he does what he does, but it's not my job to understand. His ways are not our ways. His ways are higher than ours. And Deuteronomy 29:29 says the secret matters belong to Elohim, but what has been revealed, that belongs to us and our children forever. So when he made the earth and he saw the end from the beginning, he knew at this time he needed these men, you, me, the other men in this room, everybody within the sound of our voice. Intentionally, he made you. And one of the wiles of the enemy, his most basic trick, going all the way back to the garden, is did God really say? Is that what he really said? Yeah. Which means, A, we got to know the word of God, both offensively and defensively, as a sword and a shield, and to be able to employ it so that when the enemy comes and whispers bullshit into your ear, you're not worth it. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. You're not smart enough. You don't have enough money. Your friends don't like you. Your wife probably don't like you either. Your kids don't respect you.
You're ugly. You're fat.
Exactly.
Lazy.
It all comes back to, I have a wonderful friend, Dr. Trevor Wilkins, the Angry Viking therapist, who says it all comes back to, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Okay. The Creator made you for this time, and then my King died for you. Mm-hmm. So the proof says you're more than good enough. Not in our broken, fallen state, right? But when he made us, he sees the potential in us. Yeah. He loves us as we are supposed to be, not as we are in our brokenness, in our fallenness, in our state of sin separate from him. But he knows what we could be. And if you would just return to him. To repent is to teshuva. It means literally to turn. To turn from your wicked ways and run back to him. Get back underneath that covering of blood. Repent and come back into the house of the Father, the Most High, because of your kinsman and redeemer, your brother, who became flesh so that a kinsman and redeemer could pay a price that you couldn't pay, so that you could be who you were made to be for this time, to stand up to this bullshit, to prophesy, to speak the word of the Most High, to be a bulwark against this chaos, to push back because right is right and wrong is wrong, no matter how much indoctrination we try to apply to it. And that goes back to that personal responsibility thing. If more people stood up and called bullshit on all this stuff and said, hey, we're not playing. I'm not playing this game. Yeah. You can deplatform me, demonetize me, try and shut my businesses down. I don't care, because my God is God, and he's sovereign over everything, and all things work together for his glory. And so I'm going to walk in that, and you can do your technocratic bullshit over here, and I'll just smile and wave, doing my thing over here, because seek ye first the kingdom of Elohim, and then these things shall be added unto you. We've forgotten that. We chase all these material things, these hot women and fast cars and nice houses. Bro, show me an example of that in the Gospels. Yeah. Right? Where is that? No. The servant is not greater than the master. We should be chasing opportunities to be light and love to people, to go serve one another, to speak truth to one another, to just hug people and cry with them and pray with them, or call them on their bullshit. Hey, man, I love you, but you are all wrong about that. Come here and let me tell you. Yeah. Drop some, carpet bomb some truth on them, right? And there's something here that has been since we got here. There's this central, and we're dancing around it and touching on it occasionally, this core foundational concept of what does it mean to be a man of the Most High. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very much so missing in today's day and age. And at the root of it is do not capitulate in the face of evil. And too many people are capitulating. They're folding because it's hard. Yeah, well, be harder than the problem, son.
How old are you?
40.
Don't you just sell first aid kits, dude? What's the deal?
That's all I do. Yeah, that's all I do. That's all I've ever done.
You know what? Listen, I tell you this. There's a move going on, and I don't understand it yet, but I'm sensitive. I'm intuitive. I have just enough of that prophetic in me, and that's dull but still sensitive in some ways. And I've been sensing for a few weeks now, and I've been moving in this direction because I'm 51, and the older I get, the more I cry. Jesus did it, so I do it. It's so the more sensitive I am to things, the more, but at the same time, the more bold I am in what I'm saying, the less the filter stops me. Because I believe that we are living in perilous times. I know for a fact we are. And the only thing that's going to overcome that is truth, but specifically truth about the kingdom of God. The kingdom is God, in simplest terms, God's way of doing things. If we don't get back to doing it God's way, there's no hope for anything. You know, our founding fathers believed that God was actively and divinely involved in the human affairs of man in history, day in and day out. And we don't believe that anymore. Or at least we don't live like we believe it anymore. And we've sat at the feet of prissy preachers on a platform who are wearing Gucci shoes and $25,000 to $65,000 watches and dancing around in the latest trends and telling you feel-good stories and motivating you and telling you that you got everything you need living right inside of you. That's bullshit.
Amen.
You don't. As you said earlier, you know, as you alluded, listen, we got this treasure in earthen vessels. We're cracked clay pots, man. And I thank God for the cracks because the glory shines through them. It's so, you know, Paul said, my righteous deeds are like menstrual rags. Yep. The best I can do is still shit.
Yeah.
But there's a move. There's something going on because it's stirring inside of me, and it has been. I just recently did an episode on this deal where I took people back to the concept of the Lord being your personal shepherd. It's like Charles Spurgeon said, you can say he is a shepherd. That don't matter. He is a shepherd. But is he my shepherd? Because when that personal pronoun kicks in, boy, we got a whole other set of consequences going on here. And I want to make sure that he is my shepherd. And so I've been walking through this thing, and with those consequences stirs, as you keep saying, a personal responsibility that as a man, I'm like, listen, okay, I do have a voice, I do have a platform, and regardless of what the world chooses to do with it, I have a responsibility to make sure that truth that pushes people to the kingdom of God and God's way of doing things is something that is being exposed. You have that responsibility. You're doing a great job with it. And I think there's more and more men out there that are waking up to that. Because you know what? They don't want, you know, if you go back to the American church as we've seen it evolve over the last 100 years, let's say, through the 20th century, you know, going to church was the woman's business. She was going to get the kids up on Sunday morning, get them to Sunday school, get them taken care of, and they were going to do that. And he just he did that, and then they went and ate fried chicken and went home. Mm-hmm. You know, and then Wednesday night, man didn't go to church. She went to church. You know what I'm saying? She was involved in all the stuff. She taught the Sunday school. I think men want they want that barbaric, wild Christianity that is world changing, that isn't about televisions and telethons and telephones and, you know, it's about just tell a person. But there's got to be something contagious because you know what? What you have, I want.
Yep.
So there's something in you that's attractive to me that says, I want that truth residing in me, right? And it's contagious. There are communicable traits of God that we carry in us. And if they're brought to the surface, other people are going to want them too.
Amen.
You know, and that's why iron sharpens iron. Because you get those things together, and it's like, listen, I ain't got to flower it up, church it up. I don't have to dress a certain way. I can come in here smelling like a man, looking like a man, being a man, and there's something about the Godhead that exudes out of me.
Well, amen. And
others want it.
And there are vast swaths of men, law enforcement officers, military, heavy equipment, mechanics, loggers, truck drivers. Bro, they don't want to be preached at. They see right through that bullshit. But if you can meet them on their level and then walk with them, which is exactly what Messiah does, meet you right where you're at and then walks with you, pulls you out of this bullshit that you're in, takes you over here, sets you on a straight and narrow path. There is room in the army of the Most High, in the kingdom of heaven, for men like you and I, because there are vast swaths of men that nobody is reaching out to, or very few people are reaching out to. And when you're a man, and this is not me puffing out my chest, it's just a fact, right? I am fearfully and wonderfully made in his image, and for whatever reason, this is what he chose, right? When you're a man, now I can meet those guys who have had blood on their hands, or have been working 70-hour work weeks for 38 years and barely getting by, and have compassion on them and still respect them in the moment. I'm not preaching at them. My walk and my faith and my belief and my knowing in the Father resonates with them, like you were just saying, and it creates permission to them begin to ask questions that they're not going to be judged for being who they are, because they were also fearfully and wonderfully made as well. And in Christendom, what I call the Big C Christian church, right? Dress up on Sunday, go to church, play for a couple hours, go home, be a heathen again. That's not happening. Men are not being met where they are at. It's still very much so driven in a lot of cases by the woman for the children. I mean, I was in church in Texas here, right, north of Dallas, and it was a wonderful little church of 6 families when we first got there, and that was really interesting to me. I didn't want to be there. I was still a full-blown heathen. I walked in, sat down. I was invited to go, and I was all alone. I sat down in the front pew, front row, and the pastor was right there, and he was bringing the fire, bro, like 100-pound hail from Revelation, fire and brimstone. And I was literally shaking because what was inside of me, the darkness, the demons, the evil that was inside of me, could not stand to be in the presence of that light. And they're praying out the sermon, worship band's warming up, and I run out the side door, get in my truck, haul ass home. I talked to my wife, and she said, "How was it?" I said, "Oh, babe, I hated that." She's like, "Okay." I said, "I got to go back. We got to go." And she's looking at me going, "Who the hell are you, right? Where's my metalhead drummer husband? What's going on here?" And so we go back a second time. Me and my wife, we sit in the same spot, and I'm holding her hand, and we're both just shaking, violently shaking. And they're praying into the last worship song, and we right out the side door, scoot out the side door, get in the truck. And I said, "Babe, what do you think?" And she goes, "I absolutely hated that." And I said, "Me too." She goes, "We got to go back." And I said, "I know, we got to go back." And so next Sunday rolls around, and our MO, our modus operandi at this point is shake violently for an hour, then run out the side door, right? And so we do the same thing. And, you know, it's one of those things your soul knows, because your soul comes from the Father, the nefesh, the breath of life, you know? Your soul knows. And so we knew we had to be there. We knew we had to be in the presence of this place where the Father's word was being spoken in a community of people who loved them with everything that they had. But we're still going to run out the side door. And so we go running out the side door, and the pastor's waiting for me. We were 6 feet away, so he has observed this pattern of behavior. He gets the associate pastor to pray us out. He's in the hallway off the side door. He says, "Hey, I understand you're a drummer." "Yep." And he said, "We've been praying for a worship drummer for 2 years." Shit. He said, "Would you prayerfully consider?" Now, I grew up in a Baptist church, right? That's a direct order from a pastor, right? He puts his arm around me. "Would you prayerfully consider being our worship drummer?" I said, "Yeah, let me think about that." Okay, he gives me his card. Then we hop in a truck and haul ass home, violently shaking. Get back to the house, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I say to my wife, I said, babe, I think I'm supposed to do this. She said, well, then do it. I said, I don't want to do it. She says, then don't do it. I said, but I got to do this. And she's like, do it or don't, but shut up about it. And I was like, all right, I know how to fix this guy. So I type up an email to him, and I put about a half a dozen YouTube links of me playing just the most ridiculous death metal and black metal you've ever heard. This will fix this guy. Fire that off to him. About 15 minutes later, I get CC'd on an email back from the worship leader, whose response was one line, oh, hell yeah, get this guy. And so I started bringing in it takes 17 trips. You're a touring musician.
Yeah.
It takes 17 trips to move my drum stuff to stage. 2 kick drums, 3 mounted toms, 2 floor toms, 2 snare drums, 2 rides, hi-hats, 11 crashes, 3 chinas, bells, the whole 9. Huge drum kit. So I started bringing that to church. We started having a little bit of double bass underneath the worship music, and it was banging. It was awesome. And even in that decade of apostasy that I was in, I knew he was real. I was just so mad at him. Why would you allow, if you're a good and righteous father, why would you allow all these terrible things to happen? That's not just. That's not righteous. It's unfair. And, I was a younger man, mad at the world, and I figured I might as well throw God in there as well while I'm at it.
Sure.
And even in that decade of apostasy, I was never able to run far enough away from him that he stopped loving me. So I start playing drums in church again, which is just absurd. I get baptized, and church folds. Egos of men, church folds. Didn't know what to do. And so I went home, and I was really mad. Anger is one of my superpowers. I got to be careful when to use it. And righteous anger is a thing for all the sop and what P words in the audience.
Yeah.
And I'm mad. And I pull out my Bible, and I just start reading it. Because all I knew at this point, 3 things. God is real, his son is real, and his word is true. So it's what I had. I'm like, well, nobody's going to read this word to me anymore. Church is gone. I might as well start reading it. King James Version, Genesis chapter 1. I just start reading in there. And reading it like it's a book, not skipping around, no Bible study, just reading it. And I read the whole thing in a few days. And it occurred to me, this is a beautiful, congruent story from the first page to the last page about how much the Father loves us. And then I read it again, and I read it again, and I read it again. And then one day, we had moved from Texas to Oklahoma, where land is significantly cheaper. And, talk about being in the wilderness. I'm out there all alone. Moved to Oklahoma because the Father told me to. Didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I'm walking around one day next to my house, pissed off, screaming at the Father. Who am I to rebuke him? Right? Read the story of Job. Who am I to rebuke him? And I said, what do you want me to do? There's something that I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm stupid, and I don't know what it is. So if you don't tell me what it is, I can't do it, which that's going to make me disobedient to you, and I don't want to be disobedient to you. So tell me what you want me to do. And I'm screaming at this guy, hands raised, just in a rage. Clear as a bell. Read my word. I said, I am. And he said, on camera, you idiot. And I said, hey, I didn't sign up for that shit. I am not qualified to do that. I don't want to do it at all. To which he replied, did I stutter? No, sir, you did not. And so where do you begin? Genesis chapter 1. Set up my little iPhone on the tripod. Gave a 10-minute preamble at the beginning of that video about, hey, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and I'm not a pastor, and I don't know nothing. I'm going to read every word of this Bible. Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2, on through. I've read most of the Old Testament and all of the New Testament, word for word, on camera thus far. And when I started doing that, I had 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're at 202,800 and something as of this morning, just reading the Bible on camera. And out of that little YouTube channel, you've met some of the Bear Nation who has got in your comments and accosted you about me coming here.
They're good folks.
They are. They are damn fine human beings.
They're good folks. They've been faithful followers of mine for a long time. Supporters.
Amen.
Great folks. Yep.
And out
Part of the family.
Out of that little YouTube channel, we've donated 7,000 Bibles, just given away. The first time I got the conviction to donate some Bibles, I looked up how much is a case, $214.80. I said to the Father, hey, I don't have $214.80. Will you give it to me? I will buy a case of Bibles and just give them away. Woke up the next morning. I used to have a thing on the bottom of my website. It was a buy me a coffee thing. You could click it and would put $3 via PayPal into my bank account. Somebody had clicked that and deleted the 3, typed in $215 anonymously. And the note said, to this day, I don't know who they are. You're out there somewhere. Bless you. The note said, hey, I don't know why I'm sending you this, but you do. Use it righteously. And so I wept and bought our first case of Bibles. We've given away, now I'm not the Gideons, but we have given away 7,000 copies of the scriptures. We built and deployed Grindstone Ministries 43 or 44 times now, pro bono, after hurricanes and tornadoes all across the country. And we look for the people who last week didn't know how they were going to buy groceries and this week don't have a house. If you got insurance, yeah, your life sucks right now, but you'll be okay. You'll come out of it. If you don't, and you were barely getting by before, man, those are the people that Grindstone's looking for. Forsake not the widow and the orphan, right? And Grindstone was on a deployment, and then we got the conviction. The Father punched me in the face again and said, hey, you're going to build juvenile restoration facilities for human trafficking survivors. And we got into an argument, bro. I was like, I don't know shit about that. I know how to build stuff. There's nothing in this house I can't build, right? I've had that life experience. I know how to build buildings, and I've been blessed to learn how to build teams. I don't know anything about anti-human trafficking. And he said, you build the buildings, I'll handle the rest. That was three, almost 4 years ago now. I said, we found a Kaleb house to begin fighting human trafficking. We founded Refuge Medical for the preservation of life. Everything we do is for the preservation of life. Your flesh and blood right now, so if I can keep you alive long enough for you to stick around, I can teach you about eternal life. So that hopefully one day, when Messiah returns, we'll all be weeping and gnashing our teeth together, knowing that we're going into glory, not eternal damnation. And it all come out of that, just that little bit of obedience, a little bit of personal responsibility. Hey, scumbag, take your ass to church. You need to hear what they're saying in there. Okay. And I went, and it revolutionized my life. And the reason I believe the Father has allowed me to participate in his will to this point is I have, every time he's asked me to do something, I've done it. Especially when I don't want to do it, or I don't have the money, or it's scary, or what. Every single time. I don't know how many people we have baptized, but we were in Barnesville, Oklahoma after an EF4. Tornado comes through. That's when you were texting me, hey, buddy, what you doing? It's like, I'm sitting on a 70,000-pound track hoe. So
you sent me pictures.
Yes, I did. And we'd gotten back to our FOB, forward operating base. We set one up in every town we go to. That's where we lay all our guys up, inventory the equipment, etc. We get back to the FOB, and it had been a long, hot day, and I just got my safety vest off, changed clothes, and somebody had brought a 12-pack of silver bullets, and I was like, okay. And I had just cracked the top, like just psh. And our Grindstone director of operations stands up, and he says, hey, I know where there's some living water at. If there's anybody who needs to go get baptized, let me know. And in my flesh, Mr. Ordained Pastor guy, I was like, you got to be effing kidding me. I just sat down. I just opened this beer. Like, I just got clean. It's the last thing I wanted to do. For real. It was the last thing I wanted to do.
I believe you.
Well, 5 pickup trucks full of witnesses later, we go tooling through Barnesville, Oklahoma, and we end up at there's a county park or some shit out there. I don't know what it is. And we get into the water. I go first. And I don't know where this came from, but I think it's akin to in the Old Testament when the high priest would atone for his sin first and then make atonement for the people. When I get in the water, the first thing I do is I get 2 handfuls of water. I put that on me. Get me out of the way. Use me as a conduit, because it's not going to be me that's doing any of this. I'm just here, right? I get in the water, and we had gone specifically for one gentleman. I call him into the water. I said, come here. Tell me why you need to be baptized. And he begins to tell me. He begins to confess. I said, all right, let me pray for you. And I wrap him up, hugging him, praying for him, standing in waist-deep water. And I just start praying. And the Spirit, it's an intercessory prayer. Mm-hmm. The Spirit is telling me all the things that he needs to atone for, that he didn't have the strength in the flesh to admit to me, eye to eye, man to man, standing in the water. And this dude, grown-ass man, just starts weeping and shivering. The only reason he's still standing is because I'm holding him up. And we get done. And then I put him in the water, and that man dies, and a new man arises. And I look up. There's 3 more guys standing on the bank with their shirts off. Say, I guess we're here now. Call them in one after the next after the next. And I bring this up because every time, I'm not special. I'm super duper ordinary. The only thing that makes me special is the Father indwelt in me. Yeah. We are the body of Christ. Be his hands and feet, because he's seated at the right hand of the Most High right now. Every time the Spirit tells me how to pray for these men in the moment, and they collapse and weep. And that has happened hundreds of times. Just that one facet of what we do with one ministry, to the point now where I don't believe in God. I know, unequivocally know, he's going to show up. And if he's not showing up to the thing that I'm trying to do, that ain't his will. And I need to go ahead and backpedal super quick, because I'm straying into disobedience over here. I need to stay on a straight and narrow and do whatever it is he tells me to do for his purposes, not mine, because it all belongs to him anyway. And if you've given your life to Christ, congratulations, you're the bride, you belong to him too. Now do what the hell he told you to do. Don't be a disobedient bride. Follow the bridegroom.
See, I told you. I don't even apologize for it. I just weep. I just cry.
Praise God.
When God's moving, man, I'm telling you, when revelation is happening, and it's happening, there's, at the end of the day, man, God will break you. We talked about this earlier. God will break you because he wants to break you, because he can't use you unless he does, you know? And that brokenness is a powerful thing. And, man, I'm glad you drove all the way over here.
Thank you for having me.
What are all the things? What are all the ways people can be a part of what you're doing, whether it's the YouTube channel, the Rumble channel? I mean, they just search you out. And I do encourage people. I always tell people, I say, go search him out, because it actually helps the algorithm rather than just saying, oh, click on this link. Yeah. You go search it out and find the places, click all the buttons. It triggers the algorithm. You know, Refuge Medical. I'm a big fan of all that stuff, because I'm one of those guys that likes to be prepared. I've seen some things. I've told those stories. My audience doesn't need to hear it now, but I've seen a lot of tragedy out there. Been the first on the scene on some things, and what you do is saving lives, saving souls, saving lives, all these things. Kaleb House, Grindstone Ministries. Yeah. So people go search Bear Independent.
Yeah, you can.
You're going to find a lot of stuff.
Yeah, look for Bear Independent on YouTube and all the socials, and bearindependent.com. Yeah. Predominantly, there's 3 big things that I do. Grindstone Ministries, which is disaster relief and construction projects, righteous construction projects, completely volunteer. We don't build a homeowner. We don't build a municipality. We don't build a state. We don't build a federal government. 100% privately supported. Just go in and help people when they need help. Oklahoma Emergency Management has said we are the best nonprofit they have ever seen, and that it is a blessing to the state of Oklahoma that we are there. And we don't just operate in Oklahoma. We operate across North America. Kaleb House, Kaleb with a K. Kaleb was Joshua's homie. Mm-hmm. When the 12 spies go into the Promised Land to spy it out, Kaleb and Joshua are the only two that give a good report. And later on, see, people miss this. When Joshua leads the army of the Israelites, Moses was the guy who had to teach them and correct them and break them with the rod of iron. He was not the general. Joshua, his right-hand man, originally Hoshea, then changed his name to Yahushua, which means salvation. Joshua, pattern, an archetype of Christ to come. Mm-hmm. Joshua takes them into the Promised Land. And they settle the Promised Land of 5 years of warfare. So just because you're headed to the Promised Land, brothers, doesn't mean you don't need a sword. There are bad guys up in there. And after 5 years of warfare, Kaleb decides, hey, I like that mountain. Give me that mountain as part of my inheritance. And Joshua says to Kaleb, son of Yefuneh, he says, the sons of the Anakim, descendants of giants, the Nephilim of Genesis 6:4 are up there. And New Living Bear translation. Kaleb looks at Joshua and he says, bro, I am as good today as I was the day that Moshe tapped us on the shoulder to go spy out the land. He's 85 years old. He looks at his homies and says, grab your swords, boys. We're going up the mountain. And they go up there and kill not one, not two, but 3 giants. Just because Hebrew shit, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. We slay giants in the Promised Land. And that mountain was Hebron. Hebron becomes where Obed's threshing floor is at, that King David buys to build the temple, which then becomes Jerusalem. And so this whole thing, like that mountain there, this righteous mountain for the Creator, one dude with a sword, even in his old age, went up there and whipped the shit out of 3 giants so that the Father's plan could be made manifest. So Kaleb House, slaying giants in the Promised Land. Kaleb with a K. What Kaleb House does is we are a rescue, but more importantly, a restoration ministry for juvenile human trafficking. There are lots of people that talk about anti-human trafficking. There's far fewer that actually do it. And those that do, their predominant focus is on rescue, not on restoration. Meaning, how do we break this generational curse to put these kiddos back together again so that the victim doesn't become the victimizer, so that we can break this pattern of behavior and wrap around them mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, educationally, financially, to teach these kids to be awesome members of society, to be children of the Most High. And the most amazing thing with Kaleb House that I've ever personally experienced was one time I was just talking to 3 teenagers that we had in our care. And they're sitting there looking at me. And I said, what do we have to do what you do? I'm like, I'm nobody. What do you mean do what I do? They said, what do we have? Military, law enforcement, I got to become a firefighter. What do we do to be able to do what you do? And I said, why? And one of them looks me dead in the eye. And he says, because I still have friends back there. And we need to go get them too. And so I wept. And then I realized the most positively equipped people on planet Earth to be able to deal with this problem are those that have a testimony rooted in this problem, that the stumbling block became a launch pad, that they're righteously launched out into the world to go deal with this problem. It's an exponential problem. The average victimizer is statistically responsible for 82 victims. Not incidents, victims. If I can flip that on its head, and if every time one person tries to hurt 82 kids, I turn 82 kids into righteous warriors of the Most High who are going to go out here and deal with this problem legally, morally, ethically, to put an end to this situation. That's what we're about. We have no timeline on our program because I'm not going to tell a 4-year-old that they got a year to get their poop in a group before I kick them back out again. And that's 100% privately funded because we won't adhere to any governmental woke ideological bullshit. I'm not going to pretend that Tina's Tim and Tim's Tina. We're not doing that. If you want to know more about that, you can go to kalebhouse.org. And of course, Refuge Medical. We make the best first aid kits on planet Earth.
You definitely do.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yep, absolutely. Brother.
Thank you for having me.
I love you, buddy.
I love you too.
You got your band of brothers over here. Got your back.
Yep.
Shady characters. Every one.
Every one of them. That's it. Hey, man, did you see the disciples?
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't, tax collectors, fishermen.
A bunch of rejected ones, too.
100%.
Weren't good enough to go to rabbinical school, so they went back and plied their father's trade and were told by the rabbis, go home and have babies and pray that your children can become rabbis because y'all are gone. Y'all are out of here. Jesus comes walking down the beach one day and says, come follow me. And they're like, oh, shit. Are we back in? Are we back in school? Did we get accepted? I always said that, one of the most, in a land that is predominantly farmland, Jesus didn't choose a single farmer because they're pessimists. It's always going to be the worst crop, the worst year, the worst drought, the worst rains. He chose fishermen who'll catch nothing all day long, but get back up 4 o'clock the next morning, and go do it again.
Wow. That's a good insight.
Yeah. He chose fishermen. He wants optimists because he's going to win. And I don't think he wants to hear a whole lot of bitching on the path.
No.
He heard enough from them. Can you imagine hanging around farmers? You've been around farmers. You know how they are. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be the worst.
Yep.
Worst year yet. I love you, buddy.
I love you too.
Hey, listen,
brother.
y'all check him out. Follow him out. Follow him everywhere he is. And you know what? Support him. Support him with your prayers. Support them by just participating in what they're doing. Support them financially. Do all the things. This is a guy who I said, dude, we can do this remotely. We can do whatever. I can go to Dallas, meet you halfway. He said, what's 3 more hours? He drove all the way down here to North Houston to sit in my home and spend the time, and brought his guys with him. And I'm thankful for that. And that in and of itself, you know what somebody is all about when you see what they're invested in. When you got a vested interest like that says, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. It's just another way to spend a day, to get a message out. This is a message that I'm going to pray over this episode. I honestly am, because I already know what the enemy's going to do in trying to put the glitches in it. You know what I mean? And this is something that needs to be watched over and over again. We unpacked a lot of truth. We got to give an account for all the stuff we said today.
Yep.
There's a lot.
Yep.
There's a lot, brother. If you guys want to find me, you know how to do it. Either way, I've had a blast. You guys take care of yourselves. Love each other. There's men out there who heard this message and it resonated inside your soul. It woke up something inside of you. There's a spiritual thing that happens. If you hit a tuning fork on one side of the room, the tuning fork you're holding up on the other side of the room will pick it up. That's a harmonic resonance. That's when deep calls unto deep, and there's just a rhythm that you find. That's why that tattoo right there says rhythm of life. You got to find it, man, and God's got that voice. He's strumming those chords, and you're hearing it right now. Listen, you need to don't throw this away because there's a treasure out there that's worth finding. Jesus said the kingdom of God's like a treasure that when a man finds, he went and bought the entire field, sold everything. So he spent all to buy the entire field just for that treasure. So don't neglect that treasure, guys. And I'm speaking specifically to you men. So, all right, we're going to get out of here. How do you end it? You just say bye. I love y'all. God bless you. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.